We are back here at Barber Motorsports Park. You saw the graphic flash across the screen if you're watching online, and that was said Twins Cup. We are now going to start shifting our attention to getting ready for some more racing, as you see all of the corner workers being taken back out to their posts around the racetrack. But how about our team? How about all of our men and women that are out around this racetrack, bringing the coverage all day and weathering these conditions just like all of those corner marshals?
Not only that, just today, but being there all weekend, even when it's hot, they earn their money. We were complaining about a little bit of rain today, and we're inside.
There's Fish out there at his post, and Fish is used to the wet weather, right? So we look over. I'm being told in my ear they're laughing right now. Our steadiest camera operators, the ones that are there on the ground. As we continue to look around the racetrack, just say thank you to the entire crew, both out around the track that brings the coverage for each and every race session and race itself. These corner workers about to get off of the tram right now. When you see the puddles that are out there on the racetrack still. And I know Michael Hill, the third member of our broadcast team, he's been out there to weather the storm that just blew through. Michael, I think you have all of your gear back on now too?
Yeah, still got all my gear back on, still got the cap, and the good news is it is still raining, but it is now just a little light sprinkle. So the good news is the tram left us a couple of moments ago, and from where we are here, I don't know, Steve, if you can look, yes, there is water in the paddock area, but there isn't a lot of puddles. Now, there will be a couple of corners around the track where there will be puddles, but looking at it right now, and I'm no weatherman, I'm no expert in tarmac and how these things are put and laid down, but it actually looks all right. I mean, Steve, let's just walk this way and have a look in the pit lane, because, again, one of the big questions is going to be the drive onto the straight, and then obviously because of the undulations. But if we look here just up towards that final corner, yes, it's wet, but there is no river there, and that was something that I was a little bit surprised, in a good way, to see, because it did rain very, very heavily. But certainly, Jamie and Roger, from where I am in the pit lane, it has eased up. There are some blue skies coming in, well, certainly lighter grey skies at the very least, and there is definitely no river through the final corner, which bodes well that we might get some racing, which is good news.
And we do see race stewards out around the racetrack right now. Roger, you've been involved in the championship for years and all of the different racetracks. What is it that they look for to make sure that the track is safe and ready to go? The puddles, and you can see, you know, where they're at on the edge of the track. And one thing about, we've talked a lot about the elevation here this weekend at Barber Motorsports Park. So these elevation, you know, the ones that go up, when it rains, the water has to come down. Yep. And you got to check down in there and make sure that the puddles aren't too bad. And when the puddles come out, are they going to stay dry? So that's just the biggest thing, is just checking the puddles all around the track. That's a small puddle right there, looks like. When that piece of equipment drove past earlier, it looked like a giant squeegee just on the bottom of it, pushing all of the water off of the racetrack and into the grass. And on that note, when we do get back to racing, Roger, all of the water that's now in the grass, what do riders need to keep in mind should they have an incident where they end up out there? Well, it's going to be hard, you know, with the wet. And then also, we had so much rain. When you look out there on the track, I mean, it's puddles. If you run off track and make a mistake, it's going to be hard to keep it up on the slick. So you just got to, you know, really pay attention and be smooth and not try to do anything quick. And see the puddles. Now this is, see where it was kind of thick there? That's where the downhill is, where it's going to puddle up a little more. So these guys are great equipment. Barber has handled this situation before with us and MotoAmerica plenty of times, and they always get this track going the best as possible. It's not going to be perfect. You know, we had a lot of rain, but that's, you know, that's just the way it is. And it will be the same for everyone. And, you know, in some forms of motorsports, they always say that rain is the great equalizer. When it's not actually raining and the track is just wet, and it comes down to the rider to find the new line and the best way around, does it make the rider shine more? I think it's kind of different conditions right now. When the guys go out, the track would be wet for the whole race. The tricky part is if the sun came out and then the race started getting really dry,
So right now, I think some people are just more confident in the rain, and that's just the way it is. Some people are, dreading this rainstorm, and there's other guys in the paddock that's jumping up and down and are really excited for the rain because they get to get out there. And they're really confident. They're really strong in the rain. We've talked a lot about, like Rocco Landers kind of struggles a little bit in the wet. Probably didn't want to see that rain, even though Rocco's getting a lot better. He's working really hard at that and showing some improvements. But, some riders just don't like the wet, or maybe they don't like it. They're just not very quick in it. And personally for me, some days I've won a Superbike race in the wet, and I almost got lapped one time. So it's just, you never know personally for me what happens in the wet.
And as the corner workers are now making their way out around the racetrack, let's go back down to Michael Hill. Michael, you have an update on the schedule and the way things will unfold?
Yep, I absolutely do. I'm just going to read this. It's actually just come through from Nicole Cox up in race direction. There will be a wet condition familiarization session for the Twins Cup. It's going to start at 16:45, so in about 10 minutes time, and it's going to be a 7-minute wet conditions familiarization session. The pit lane will then open for a quick start procedure for the Twins Cup at 16:59, and it will be a 7-lap race. So that is the latest. We are going to get bikes on track 16:45 to 16:52, wet practice, and then the pit lane will open at 16:59 for a quick start 7-lap race. That is the latest. Back to you, Jamie.
All right, thank you. Yes, this race was originally scheduled to be 14 laps, so by cutting it in half, they are giving all of the Twins Cup riders the opportunity to see the racetrack in these conditions, and that's one of the things that MotoAmerica does each weekend. If the race conditions are different than what we saw during practice and qualifying, it's fair for everybody. Everybody needs a chance to see the track and what to expect. And if one of the sessions for that category had been wet already in the weekend, they don't have to do that. It would be up to the rider and up to the team to make sure that they get out there and take a look at it at that time.
And also for safety as well, just gives the riders the opportunity to see, where there might be puddles. And like you said, they always give them the opportunity, if it hasn't been wet, they get to go out there, and they get 7 minutes. They get the opportunity to see that track, and I'm sure you're going to see all the riders out there getting out there pretty quick, trying to get as many laps in as they possibly can in that 7 minutes.
And we took a good look at all of our hardworking camera operators out around the racetrack, the stewards that are back out there now. But look at the fans that have been out here all day, and they were ready. They've got their Crocs on. Doesn't matter if it's raining or if it's sunny outside. They're all ready to go, and they're waiting it out so they make sure that they can see all of the action. They've got the snacks. They've got the umbrellas. They've got the tents. Dancing in the rain. There's nothing quite like it. All right, we are going to take a quick break again. We heard that as early as 4:45 local time in the next 8 minutes, we may see some action out there, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
We repair, restore, we do crash damage repair, we do color restoration, color modifications, alterations to make your fit better, and also custom logos and putting names on your suit as well.
Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Frankie Garcia out here with Mission King of the Baggers, and we're going to talk about Anthony's Leatherworks out of Newport Beach, California. Anthony's Leatherworks is so important for all of us racers out here. Obviously we have these suits that are extremely expensive, nice suits, top of the line quality racing suits that we wear. And we do have these times where we go down, we need work done to these things, we need patches sewn on, new sponsors, and Anthony's Leatherworks is just the go-to place for all of that. It works especially well for me because I live close by. I take my leathers there, I take my riding vests there, my riding jackets for the street there. Anthony's Leatherworks does it all from boots to gloves, our suits, casual stuff. Milos makes these suits overseas, so for us to get them tailored quick and easy, Anthony's Leatherworks is the best of the best.
What's going on, everyone? I'm Darwin Yeager, Trade Marketing Manager for Motul USA. So Motul is a world-class French company specializing in the production, distribution of high-quality engine lubricants across 120 countries. We're involved with MotoAmerica. This is our third year now because it's our heritage. We are known as a racing brand. That's what kind of the brand's been built on. And to be able to have the platform of a MotoAmerica racing series, especially with the King of the Baggers, it allows us to kind of test our products. It's a proving ground. Basically, if it's going to work for these guys at the high engine temps, you know, going 180 miles an hour, then it's going to work for just about anybody.
My name's Corey West. I ride for Team Saddleman Race Development on the number 13 Harley Davidson. These bikes were not designed to do what we're doing. We're going out there, we're ragging the hell out of them. I mean, I'm beating that thing up, banging gears. I mean, they have quick shifters on them now. I don't think any Harley was designed for that. We're not going easy on these things. And having Motul in those bikes just gives me the confidence that these things aren't gonna just scatter when I go grabbing one too many downshifts on accident or something, you know. We're pushing these things really hard. And when you have good quality chemicals and lubricants inside the motor, everything's happy.
For more information or any technical details that you may be seeking on the Motul product line, make sure to go to motul.com, and it'll feature our entire motorcycle range as well as our automotive range as well.
My name is Michael Hummelsbach. I'm the motorcycle market manager at Öhlins USA. Öhlins as a company is a race and a high performance company. So in Sweden, there's a group of engineers that make sure that they design, dyno test, and do all of the R&D properly. Then they do great documentation like that setting bank and all of the computer programs, and they disperse that around the world so that all of our dealers, not just us at the factory, have access to. So anybody at a track day, whether you're at Buttonwillow, California, has the ability to access all of those components that we have. We have 7 people here on a regular basis, and we support the entire paddock, some of the bigger teams, contract individuals. So we'll have one contract to a superbike team, and they will get a suspension technician for the whole weekend. And that covers everything for them. It covers their service, their technical advice, and we're basically like suspension engineers for them. And so I think that's the big Öhlins advantage, is the information, knowledge that we have, that we share with everybody, and also the experience that Öhlins has as far as what they've learned around the entire world.
Hey guys, Cameron Bovier here. I'm standing next to my MotoAmerica Superbike run by Monster Energy Attack Performance Yamaha. It's the furthest thing you can get from stock. As you can see, we have a partnership with Öhlins Suspension. Our guys at Attack are so meticulous with this thing and build it to go around the racetrack as fast as you can.
Welcome back to Barber Motorsports Park, where you can see through this shot that the rain is continuing to fall here at various parts around the racetrack, but nonetheless, race control has taken a look at this racetrack, and they now know that in 2 minutes time we are going to send the Twins Cup category out around the racetrack for familiarization laps for 7 minutes to be able to get a good look at the track and get a feel for what to expect on a wet track. Roger.
Yeah, I see Dominic Doyle there headed back out. He won that second race last weekend at last race at Road Atlanta in the wet, so you know he's probably feeling pretty confident going into this going into the race today. But you know, these couple laps he'll be able to get a good feel for the bike and where the puddles are and what the grip level is. And for Dominic, I think just knowing that you did so good the previous race in the wet, I think gives you a little bit of confidence going into that race today.
See the focus on his eyes as there are important 7 minutes as each session so far this weekend for the Twins Cup riders, as for the practice yesterday as well as the qualifying session 1 yesterday, qualifying session 2 earlier this morning, all of those were in dry conditions, so this is their first taste of what to expect for this rain race.
And, you know, we talked about some guys excited for the rain and other guys might not, like Alessandro Di Mario. You know, he's been a couple seconds quicker than the rest of the guys in the dry, so I'm sure he definitely didn't want to see this rain, but it's going to be the same for everyone, and they're going to get a look to see what this track looks like, and you know, see where the puddles are and things like that. They get the rider stopped, and they're about to let them head on out.
Remember, DeMario in the second qualifying session earlier today, he had an incident and was only able to put one lap up, and that team had to affect some repairs on that number 27, and he's now getting back out on the bike for the first time in a very different racetrack.
Really different conditions, and you know, now he will have a little bit of an opportunity. Luckily for him that the crash wasn't big, but you can see that these guys, you see right on the bottom of the hill where the guys are going through, we talk about those puddles and the water having to run down, and it meets a little bit there, and you know, it's not that bad, but when you go through that, you will pick the bike up a little bit so you're not so much on the edge of the tire.
We'll take a look at how they will line up once everybody makes their way to the starting grid. It will be Alessandro Di Mario on that pole position alongside his teammate Gus Rodeo, Rocco Landers rounding out the front row.
Yeah, Chris Parrish there, 7th. Great qualifier for him. Jack Roach, great to see him back again this weekend there on the wrench racing bike in 9th.
And on row number 4, you see Avery Dreyer. He's the champion in the Junior Cup, making his move up here to Twins this season, as well as you've got Trevor Standish, another name familiar coming up through the ranks. You've got Ned Brown, Joseph Bittner, and Giacomo Manera rounding out row number 6.
See Jeffrey Perk there inside row 7. Good qualifying for him, and you just see all the names throughout that list there. Rodney Vest, great to see him out there this weekend. We had a really full field this weekend in Twins Cup. We had 34 riders signed up.
Yeah, well, guys, there are just 5 minutes left of this session. Bikes coming out onto the circuit. A couple of guys just making the last few minute changes before they go out. I can tell you that the heavens have now opened. You might not be seeing it on the TV pictures, but I can tell you it is absolutely pouring down here. And any chance that we thought that the rain was going to go away, well, unfortunately, it's back. And I can tell you it is very, very wet.
Saw Tyler Duffy there on the screen, not out there taking advantage of this opportunity. And Roger, you look ahead to what's expected of these riders. Now, in one way, you could say, okay, well, at least it's continuing to rain, so the track is going to stay wet. We don't have to worry about the intermediate conditions that could be possible if the track started to dry.
But just, you know, for a lot of these guys, they had to rush and make those changes and get the tires swapped over really quick. And for a lot of these teams, you know, they work on their own bikes. It's hard to run, and just, you talk about this being such a quick session, 7 minutes. You look down at the TV screen and nobody's did a complete lap yet, and we're almost only 4 minutes left. So they're only going to get, you know, probably 2 or 3 laps if they got out early, possibly 4 if they're lucky, to really get a good look at this track, and then, you know, just figure out where the puddles are. And then also when you're behind somebody, see how the spray is. And you see Gus Rodeo there on screen. Really good rider in the wet. You see him just out there going slow, checking it all out, not taking any chances. One risky thing too, MotoAmerica is a 1-bike rule, so you know you don't want to throw it down the road during this 7-minute session and miss the race.
And as the riders are coming around, just an opportunity to remind you, make sure you're following along on all of the social media channels. I follow MotoAmerica on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, and on YouTube, all with the MotoAmerica name. And you can catch up on some behind-the-scenes action, as well as some press conferences and different rider features that the team at MotoAmerica do, not on race weekends, but in between the weekends as well. Watch Gus Rodeo continue to come around, and to your point, Roger, nobody has put a complete lap up on the board at the opening of the field.
And Michael talking about how hard it's raining. You can hear it in our headsets, how hard it's raining. You can see how hard it's hitting the track there, and see what these riders have to deal through. Eddie K did the very first lap, minute 57. Gus Rodeo a little over 2 minutes. So these guys are definitely in some tricky conditions right now.
for a rider who may not have experience in these conditions, and everybody's got to go through this, and Rocco Landers, that was one of the things that he struggled with early on in his career, is just not having all of the experience in the rain and then not trusting it and not being comfortable. How different is it?
It is different, and it's all about confidence. And you get out there, and sometimes you talk to a lot of riders, and they just say, sometimes I feel good in the wet, other times I don't. And it's just all about getting that confidence, and for Rocco also, the way to build that confidence is having these rain races and getting out there and putting the time in. We seen him at Road Atlanta, that Friday morning, knowing it wasn't going to rain anymore the rest of the weekend, was out there getting those laps in the wet, and that's the only way to build that confidence, is get out there and get some laps in the wet conditions.
And it's not just the corner workers and everybody that had to get back into their positions. You take a look on the left-hand side of your screen, and you see the visual M4XR Suzuki team resetting their pit area. When that storm came through and the skies got really dark, the lightning was in the area, the wind picked up. These crews had to go to work quickly and get their pit lane area packed away. Now they've got to get it unpacked and get ready for this afternoon and the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, and they have to be ready. The race is starting pretty quick, and you can see the sky there. It looks like it's getting kind of clearing up a little bit. Michael said it's raining pretty hard out there, but it looks like it's kind of blowing through.
I'm just looking at the rule book and what will happen in this familiarization session. These 7 minutes are ticking away, just over a minute remaining. There will be a checkered flag that will end the session, and then simultaneously a 7-minute call will be made for pit lane opening for a quick start. So not only has the race been shortened down to 7 laps from the 14 originally scheduled laps, the starting procedure has also changed, and you're throwing a lot of things into some riders without a lot of experience in the procedural stuff, Roger, that they're getting ready for mentally. Now that's different.
It's all different, and it's a learning thing, for a lot of these riders. It's something that they're going to have to figure out and experience. The Avery Drury, they're having a little bit of a mistake. Avery is actually right now leading this little 7-minute session, almost 4 seconds quicker than the guys behind him. So you can see he's out there, looking good, feeling confident. But you can see the way that bike's moving around, he's sliding it.
He is the first of the riders that we've seen on the picture that seem like he is pushing a little bit and just seeing how far he can go. But in these conditions, would you do the same?
I think you definitely want to see where it's tricky is what it is, because you really want to see the grip when you get out there and get out there and go racing, see him jump over this curve here, and then as he goes over that paint, going to be straight up and down over that. And when he goes in to go right here, watch the rear end. It's going to start to step out on him. Was able to save it really quick. You want to go out there. You really want to check the grip level, but also, like we mentioned, it's a one-bike rule. You'd hate to crash. So you want to go, but you got to try to find a happy medium there somewhere.
You saw the checkered flag that was out, and as I mentioned from the rule book just a moment ago, the same time that checkered flag flies, simultaneously the 7-minute call is going to be made for pit lane opening for the quick start. So for the riders that took the checkered flag, they can't pace themselves back around the racetrack. There's only 7 minutes before they've got to exit pit lane to get back out there.
And also too, if you want to make some changes, you need to hurry up and get back to your crew and talk to them, and maybe I would have asked my crew if they were watching on screen, what were riders doing? Hey, I was really struggling in turn 8. What did you see on the screen? Or, if I had a coach or whatever, I'd come in and I'd try to soak up all that information I could really quick, because like you mentioned, it is going to go really fast. That 7-minute clock has already started, and, you see Avery, how fast he is compared to the other guys. I would be asking what was he doing different? Was he dragging his knee, and all these other different questions.
And Avery Dreyer just took that opportunity at the end of that session to go to the starting zone and do a practice start on the wet tire for the first time this weekend. The checkered flag continues to wave. Another thing that Avery is using, Roger, is the rain cover over his leathers. We don't see everybody using it. We talked about this back at Road Atlanta, how it is a personal preference, but some guys get too hot in it. Some guys, they don't feel like they can move as much in it. What are the benefits?
Well, it keeps them dry. And one thing, if we were at Road America, I would say that jacket's too big with the long straightaway. That's a lot of drag if the straightaway is really long. But here at Barber, the straightaway is not very long, but it keeps you dry, which will keep you warm. But the downside of it is you can't, it can restrict your moving. They have it for the legs as well. It's usually a matching pair of pants and the jacket. Most people just wear the jacket because of that, able to move around on the bike. But and as you mentioned too, it gets really, really hot in those as well.
You see the pants that he has on there, and having the two-piece suit. The boots also.
It's just all a custom thing, and I know some guys also will wear like what a doctor wears, those little rubber gloves under their gloves if it's cold out to try to keep their hands dry. A lot of riders who have 2 pairs of gloves will probably try to switch gloves so they can actually start this race with dry gloves. So there's a lot of little things you got to do. These riders are going to be trying to talk to each other and figuring out, see what they thought about the track.
Talking to their team, as you mentioned, the umbrella is still out. I think rain is still falling on this front section of the racetrack. Is now watching the riders that are coming down pit lane, and it seems like everybody's got the umbrellas out. So conditions are certainly not improving at this exact moment. You can see the water just dripping off of the underside of that number 19 right there as well.
You can see how hard it's still coming down.
So number 25 is Dominic Doyle, and looks like he might take the helmet off and debrief with the team a little bit. Rocco Landers, and he had such a great qualifying effort, being able to get himself back on the front row in that second qualifying session this morning. And he had the win in the first race at Road Atlanta after having to get back up into twin shape, we'll call it. He's been extremely successful in the Twins Cup category. He has 16 total wins when you include the one that came at Road Atlanta, but he hasn't been in this championship for a couple of years, and now back on the Twins Cup bike in the rain for the first time.
We see the points here. Gus been most consistent so far this year, leading the points over Rocco, 22-point lead. Dominic Doyle there, 28th. Alessandro DeMario been strong this weekend, 34 points back. Avery Dreher also there in the top 5, and that's, you look at these points, you have a rain race like today that can really shake up the points with people able to make mistakes, or, a rider that struggles in the wet finds himself down there around, 8th or 9th against his championship rival who gets up there on the podium. You could either lose or make up a lot of points today.
And for everyone who's been following along with us all day, the difference in Twins Cup when you talk about championship points is that their season actually did start with points paying rounds occurring back at Daytona. So this is actually the 3rd round of competition for them, and the points are really starting to mean something. We have fans all over the place. Look, what rain? You don't need an umbrella. Nobody needs a rain jacket. Just soak it all in, right? We are less than 2 minutes now before riders will exit pit lane, come back around and find their grid positions for the quick start procedure.
Man, you can tell the nerves are high. You can see the crews look nervous, the riders look tense.
Well, it's not as easy as you just put a rain tire on it. And the work that was done back in the paddock to get these bikes ready to go, and the setup changes that have been made, they only got 1, 2, 3 maybe laps in that familiarization session to see if they worked, and there's not enough time to fix anything at this point. So what they've got is what they've got, and they only have 7 laps to do something.
And that's what I think is important to kind of talk with your crew. You see there, Chris Parrish, that tape there around his nose, that will keep from breathing. Whenever it's raining and it's wet like this, you can fog up your shield and you can't see. So some riders, I know I was an Arai guy, and they made something just for that covered your nose, where hopefully it doesn't fog your shield up. But I know some guys that will put a little piece of tape there and try to keep that shield clear, because visibility is going to be tough.
It's not just the visibility with the visor, but talk about visibility with the spray. We've got a full field this first lap, especially when everyone's starting together and they're going out together and having to get through those opening corners all stacked up, how much can you see in front of you?
You can't see a lot, and when we get to start this race and we see these guys come up over turn 4 and then out of turn 7, you'll see that spray. When you're further back in the pack, as wet as it is, because you can see how wet the track is, the spray is, I mean, there you get to some spots where you can't see, and you got to, you know, depends where you're at. You got to be cautious, and you got to be zoned in. You see the spray right here, that's only 3 or 4 riders. You cannot see the riders coming.
You can't see anybody through it. It's almost like it creates just a fog with no visibility. So coming back around for the quick start procedure, which means there will be one crew member out with each of the bikes. What would you be nervous in this situation? Is nervous the right word?
I would be nervous, big time. I'd be anxious as well. I would try to tell myself I'm not nervous, you know, to try to relax myself. But you know, there's so many different variables in the wet. You have the puddles. You also have, you know, there can be some seams in certain spots. We see them going into the museum corner, going up over that curb, and there's paint. So definitely a lot more nervous, a lot more things. You know, racing in the rain isn't as physically demanding as it is in the dry. But what is way harder is the mental side of it. And because you have to be so locked in with remembering where all the patches are, the grip level different, and what corners, and, you know, the spray. There's just so much that you just got to be so locked in. Whenever you get done with the rain race, you're just so mentally drained.
All right, so it is a quick start procedure. Mentioned there will be one crew member for each rider out of their grid position. What else is different, Roger? What's the process here?
And then now they don't have to set on the grid as long as, you know, before. And, you know, I think for a lot of riders, it gives you less time, I think, to really think about the start. And now you just come around and your crew gets to give you a last high five or a hug or whatever they want to give you, and then they're off the track. So you don't have to sit there. The umbrellas don't come out. The tire warmers don't come out. Everything just happens a lot quicker.
See the visors going down on the helmets. You can see out on the front straightaway the rain continuing to fall, and as we've talked about, it's not puddling right there, but there are certainly some areas where there is more water accumulated in different portions on the racetrack. Just the level of focus that you see on the riders' faces as they're getting ready for the warm-up lap. It's very different than a normal warm-up lap.
That was an awesome shot too of Rocco's eyes there. You could just see how locked in he was, talking about being mentally draining. You can just see the focus that he had and the way he was locked in there, and just watching the flag. And now they all get another little shot to another. This is their last lap to really see the track before they go racing, and you can see the spray that you've talked about. And you know, now it's still raining, so I think this track, you know, if the rain picks up, we could get more puddles as the race goes on.
If you're just joining us, we have mentioned that this race has been shortened from 14 laps down to 7 laps, but let's throw in that mental aspect of the conditions that are out there. Roger, is this going to be a more difficult task to do the 7 laps as you take another look at the focus on Rocco Lander's face? Will 7 laps be more difficult in these conditions than 14 laps in dry?
I believe so. I think it's more stressful, even though there's 7 less laps. There's just so many more variables that can happen. You know, when the track is dry, it's really not going to change throughout the race. You know, it could stop raining on the first lap and the track start to dry out as the race goes on. So this 7 laps, it seems short when you think about it, but to these guys, if you ask them after the race, they're going to tell you it felt like longer than a 14 lapper.
And there is Gus Rodeo on that number 96. He had his hand out. He is much further back in the pack than where he started this lap. He qualified second. Looking for him to come back around. He did have his arms up, letting other riders go past him. You see him there in the shot.
some guys like to wait and get back to the grid as late as possible, you know, and not have to sit there. Also, we talked about shields fogging. The longer you sit there on the grid and you're breathing hard, your shield can fog up. So, you know, I think some guys just don't like to sit there because once you stop here, that's when you start overthinking, and but he could have a problem.
Now being told from our truck that it looks like Gus Rodeo is making his way down into the pit lane, and you see him, he's wiping his eyes, and maybe it is that visibility that you talked about, Roger.
Yeah, he keeps messing with the shield. We know yesterday he struggled with a migraine and didn't make that qualifier, first qualifier yesterday afternoon, so I'm not sure what's going on.
He did stop right in front of his pit. Michael, you're down there?
Yeah, just from where we are standing, we can see that there is a visor issue for Gus Rodeo. This is not what he needs, of course, fighting for the championship. He is going to be at the back of this field. He's got a lot of work to do. He's not going to take the start as the flag marshal moves to the left-hand side. Red lights are on. Lights are going to go off in a second. And Jamie, Roger, we are racing.
Yes, the entire field has now left their grid positions. Alessandro DiMario getting a great start. Rocco Landers settling down into line as we are now under a race pace here in the rain at Barber Motorsports Park. Roger.
Yeah, great start for Alessandro DiMario there from pole position there, and this is going to be the guys they're going to be able to really see what the track is like. You see Rocco there in second. Dominic Doyle there was fourth coming out of turn one. And you see the spray. We've talked a lot about it.
Alessandro DiMario has the cleanest shot of anybody as you just see how slick it is as they go into the corner. Rocco Landers falling back, certainly not as comfortable as some of the other riders around him that are able to make up some ground.
And Avery Dreyer, he has had a first great lap for him, and Dominic Doyle. Both those two guys are up there second and third.
Remember in that familiarization session that we did have, Avery Dreyer was the one that was pushing it the most. So
see these guys, they're pushing, they're slipping and sliding. That's also in the rain as well. You got to kind of be careful. You don't want to get caught up in somebody else's little mishap as well.
Alessandro DiMario still with clean in front of him. It is Dominic Doyle behind him in second place right now. He's got just enough of a gap that he doesn't have too much of that spray coming off. But look at Avery Dreyer making a look, seeing if he can go ahead and slot himself into that second place on the podium.
Yeah, Avery looks super confident going around guys on the outside. We've seen him in that warm-up or that 7-minute track familiarization, being 4 seconds quicker than everybody else, and just look at him cutting
and
through
now
the
he just
pack.
goes to the lead.
A great first lap for Avery Dreyer, and I was about to talk about the guy in fourth place, but he's now on the floor, and that is Sean Varsky. He's had a couple of years away from racing, and he was having such a good start, and unfortunately he ends in the gravel, but it's now Avery Dreyer that has taken over at the front. Dominic Doyle doing well. Keep your eyes out too on Jack Roach, and the rider there in sixth position, Giacomo Manera, a very, very experienced endurance racer. These conditions, Jamie, could really play into his hands, but it's Dreyer out front, and the reigning Junior Cup champion is looking good.
Yeah, and just as quickly as that for Sean Varsky, he was right there in the mix with this group that is much more comfortable in these conditions, it would seem, as we see another rider that is down right now. And I think that's Giacomo Manera that Michael was just talking about. And when you go off in these conditions, Roger, it's not as easy as just hopefully picking the bike back up. You see how hard that rain is coming down at portions of the racetrack. The grass around is so slick and everything is so muddy, it just gets sucked up into the bike.
Yeah, and you just slide a lot further. The grass is almost like a slip and slide, and then the bike gets caught up in the mud as well, so it's harder to... Sometimes you crash and the speeds are a little bit slower, so the bike might not go as far sometimes, but there's other times it can be a lot worse. But Avery Dreyer here, great start. You can see Alessandro DiMario and also Dominic Doyle, both those two guys are trying to run Avery's pace right here these first couple laps.
Take a look at this replay on the left-hand side of your screen. Oh, and you can see him go down right there in the back of that frame. Didn't make it all the way over to the gravel, but certainly accumulated a lot of grass in getting into that position. Let's go back to the front of the field. You see Avery Dreyer now with that gap that he has on Alessandro DiMario and Dominic Doyle on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. And Remember, he's making this move up into the BellissiMoto Twins Cup. He's coming from Junior Cup, and this is the first race in the rain, and it's continuing to fall, but this is an impressive performance for Avery.
Yeah, really impressive. And I remember when we go back to that second race at Road Atlanta when it was wet, he worked his way up to fourth, and looks like he's carried that confidence over and been, you know, I'm impressed as well at his first race, and just the way he has confidence in the bike, watching him slide the bike on corner entry and corner exit.
And if you remember, before we got underway for racing, Gus Rodeo, who was meant to start on the front row, he qualified second in that second qualifying session earlier this morning. He had the issue with the visor, had to start at the tail end of the field once everybody else came by. He is now up into 16th position.
And the big thing for Gus is just try to do damage control, finish inside the top 15 and collect as many points as he possibly can.
Avery Dreyer continues to build this gap. Dominic Doyle is right there on the back of Alessandro Di Mario as we have another rider that is now down. That is Eddie Kay.
Looks like that turn 2 area.
Parts of the track where it's not raining, the spray is not nearly as bad. And to your point mentally, Roger, and having to manage all of the conditions that are around here.
That's the tough part, and that's what, you know, you see riders sliding out. You forget where you're at, or you forget about a puddle. You can end up on the ground, and it's tricky. It's really tricky out there in the wet. Last lap, Avery Dreyer was a 47.8, and Alessandro Di Mario 48.0. So he's a couple tenths quicker. Separated that gap just a little bit, but not a lot. 1 second in the rain can be made up pretty fast.
I believe this is this Romeo Chiavini that has gone off as well. So riders are certainly pushing. They're trying to find the limit. We only have 4 laps remaining in this 7-lap shortened rain race. Got to push, they got to find it, and they've just got to learn.
And you can see, I don't know if Avery made a mistake or what, but looking at the camera shot, you can see Alessandro's really closed up.
Another look at what happened just a moment ago. Just push that line just a little too much, Roger. You were talking about earlier the mistakes that riders make and how everybody has done it at some point in time. In these conditions, though, it seems like it's got to be a lot easier. As you now see Alessandro Di Mario, he followed behind Avery Dreyer for a couple of laps, picking up on what he was doing where he was pushing, and now he's able to take over the advantage.
Yeah, able to take the lead. He was in a good opportunity there to follow Avery for a couple laps and see what he's doing, and you know, now Avery has the opportunity to get behind Alessandro Di Mario and maybe see different lines or what corners he's making up a little bit of time and give him that opportunity. When they come around the stripe this lap, it's only going to be 3 laps left.
Two of them have now pulled a little bit of a gap on Dominic Doyle. You don't see in the same frame as them. The gap the last time they came across the stripe was just over 3 seconds. You see Dominic was right there at the back, but Cassidy Heiser is right there putting the pressure on Dominic Doyle.
And when you look at the track, you can see the sun in certain parts of the track where they're at right now starting to pop out. And we talked about the track changing a lot. You know, it's raining really heavy the first lap. Now with the sun out, you know, it's not going to dry out completely, but it's going to change from lap to lap.
And one thing that we didn't consider in the spray and in the visibility issues could potentially be glare.
And I think Cassidy Heiser Dominic Doyle made a little mistake there into turn 5 and was able to get himself in that last podium spot.
Roger, you might remember last year we talked a lot about Cassidy Heiser, who is a regular runner in the top 10. And these weather conditions, we've talked about the rain being a leveler. This is a great opportunity for Cassidy. We're looking at him there. He's now ahead of Dominic Doyle, running in 3rd position. And pardon the pun, it's a real opportunity for a rider like Cassidy to shine in these conditions, Roger. You've got to take the opportunity, and at the minute, Cassidy's grabbing it by both hands.
And he's, you know, really fast. Last lap, he was a 46.9. He was faster than actually Avery, so you know, if he can continue that pace, Avery makes a mistake, maybe he can close down to him as well.
Alessandro Di Mario, though, on that note, he's doing his fastest laps so far, a 1:45.9, so almost 2 seconds quicker that last lap than Avery Dreyer after he made that pass and then got the clean track in front of him.
I've been impressed with Alessandro all weekend in the dry and also even in the wet, moving up the Twins Cup, coming in here, and I think it's a huge boost for a young rider, going to be able to, be really fast in the dry, but also looks like he slid out. Leader's down.
And Alessandro Di Mario pushed it just a little too much, and now in the gravel trap as he attempts to get that bike picked back up, see if he can get back into contention. You see Avery Dreyer there now taking over the lead.
That's how fast it can happen in the wet. Everything's going good, and the rear end just stepped out there, and hopefully he can get that bike back up and try to get back and finish these last couple laps.
He is back underway. Saw him out there on the track, only 2 laps remaining. See if the bike is in good enough condition that he would be able to stay within points paying contention here. That is the gap to second place from Avery Dreyer down to Cassidy Heiser. You see that focus through that clear visor on Avery Dreyer. It is a shortened race. We talked about the mental aspect involved here in these conditions, but look at that determination.
Just look at the focus, and also, with that clear shield, the sun coming out. We talked about that. It can, it can kind of blind you a little bit, and for Avery, he's going to come around. He's going to see his pit board. It's going to see the lead, and he just has to keep it smooth this last lap. See if he can finish it out. It's going to feel like the longest lap of his life, I'm sure.
He's also going to see the white flag now flying as we are on the final lap of this 7-lap battle in these tricky conditions for Avery Dreyer. But we just saw moments ago for Alessandro Di Mario how quickly it can all go away. For him, he doesn't have anybody right behind him. There is no pressure.
Just has to hit his marks, try to avoid the parts of the track that's really slick. You see him here, he was backing it in quite a bit early on in the race. This lap toward the end, keeping it smooth, pretty much the wheels in line. And for Avery, just, he is a Junior Cup champion, so he's a really smart young rider.
Yes, he certainly has brought all of that experience with him, and said that it was just time. It's time for him to make the move up. It's time for him to prove what he's capable of doing, and part of that is in these mixed conditions. We don't know what the weather is going to be when we go from venue to venue, but being able to show that he's here and he's ready and he's going to push himself to the challenge each time, that's what champions do.
And he's had some challenges going back and forth between Twins Cup and Junior Cup, and you can just see that, the fighter that he is, just keeping his head down, starting to figure it out, and he only has a little less than half a lap to go.
He did have a podium finish back in the first race at Daytona where he finished 3rd. So this would potentially, could he bring it home, be a 2nd podium of the season, but it would be his first win in Twins Cup. This really goes back to that familiarization session, Roger, where he was the first and really one of the only riders that pushed it a little bit. We saw him hitting the marks and going through. As you see his fists up in the air, telling the team, I did it. He takes the checkered flag, and Avery Dreyer has now won his first BellissiMoto Twins Cup race, and it comes here in the rain at Barber Motorsports Park.
Yeah, what a great ride by him. Look, he's kind of shaking his head like, man, I can't believe I just won this. What about Cassidy Heiser? It's so cool to see him get on the podium. He looks just as happy as Avery does.
And if we're giving away awards for making up ground, Cassidy Heiser started this race back on the 4th row after qualifying in the 11th position, able to come up through the field, battle out through these conditions, and just make the most of it, and then keep a clean head on his shoulders and bring it home for a 2nd place finish.
You see the championship leader here. Looks like he's going to try to gain a couple more spots in this last lap, get himself inside the top 10. Gus Rodeo ends up 9th. Not where he'd like to finish, but at least he got some points after having that mishap with the shield to start the race.
And he put in a good ride to be able to come up through everybody. Alessandro Di Mario, after we saw him go down from the race lead, he was able to bring it home for a 7th place finish. Take a look at the lap chart for Avery Dreyer. His best lap coming there towards the end of the race. It was at 146.2, but he was right there and consistent, hitting the same marks each lap.
Yeah, and even in the wet, when you look at that, just see how consistent Avery was, and you know, you can see how excited he is. You can see the smile in that young kid's helmet. It's really cool to see.
And our podium, Cassidy Heiser in second, Dominic Doyle finishing in third.
Is he going to climb the fence? Oh.
See. Continue to do the work. You said that this was a mentally challenging race. He physically had a lot left in the tank, Roger.
Yep, so now he's going to burn the rest of it out. But those leathers, too, being wet, they're a lot heavier than, you know, when he does that in the dry.
Adrenaline does some miraculous things, though, as you see the fans out there celebrating with them. Round of applause to all of those fans that came back out in the rain and wanted to make sure that they caught the show that this BellissiMoto Swing Cup field were able to put together. Just a beautiful overhead shot of this racetrack. You can see the fog off in the distance. Take another look at Alessandro Di Mario. This was from the race lead.
Yeah, and that's the rain. You just stepped out so fast. There was nothing he could do to save it. Once it comes around that quick, the track there, as you see, it kind of goes away a little bit, and it just stepped out so quick. There was nothing he could do, and it was great. I mean, he got up and ran to that bike and picked it up and was able to collect some points still.
And he finished in that 7th position and still have another race tomorrow, so it's important that he was able to continue going. Look at the weather out here around, just the fog that's built up through the trees. You can see the clouds off in the distance. That was a big storm system.
Big storm, and it was just beginning of this race, it was pouring rain, and now the sun's out.
And take a look at the highlights from this first race of the weekend.
Yeah, Rocco Landers got a really good start there from the front row, but early on in this race, it was Alessandro Di Mario leading the way. Rocco Landers, see they're losing a couple spots. You can see the spray that all these riders were having to deal with early on until the pack kind of separated. And you see some guys starting to make some mistakes, figuring out where the grip level was. And you see Avery Dreyer here starting to make some passes there on that first lap. Here he's going to make the pass for the lead on Alessandro Di Mario. And we thought from maybe and then Sean had a crash there in the last corner. He made up a lot of spots. And then Avery started fighting back here toward the end of the race. Alessandro Di Mario took his turn at the lead. Big mistake right there. Just stepped out so quick. There was nothing he could do. Disappointing for him. But from there, Avery was just able to get out there, do those strong, consistent laps, not make any mistakes, and hold on for his first Twins Cup win.
And then do some push-ups at the end just to make sure to cap it all off the right way. A big congratulations to Avery Dreyer. Take a look at the overall results here for race number 1 at Barber Motorsports Park. You see Avery Dreyer, the top of the charts, Cassidy Heiser, Dominic Doyle. We'll hear from them down at the podium. Jack Roach was a good result for him, finishing 4th. Rossi Moore in 5th. And Rocco Landers, even though he did fall back in that midsection of the race, he was able to stay in the top 6. Let's go ahead and get down to Michael Hill, who's found his way over to the podium area. Let's celebrate, Michael.
Yeah, let's celebrate indeed. The sun is now shining. You couldn't make it up. We've had so many seasons in the last hour. But here is the man of the moment, his first ever win in Bellissimo Twins, Avery Dreyer. The disappointment from earlier out of the window. You absolutely earned that stellar ride. Well done, mate.
Man, I don't even know what to say. First off, I got to say a big thank you to the whole Top Row Motorsports team and my whole family for believing in me. Man, honestly, it's been pretty rough these past few weeks with the spill at Daytona, and we were struggling a little bit in Atlanta. And you know, as soon as I saw the rain start to fall, I was like, oh yeah, this is mine to take. And man, the bike was on rails. I got to thank the whole team for that. Thank you to Dale Quarterly for, you know, everything he's done for me. And yeah, I'm just so happy to be back up here. It's a dream come true to get a win in the Twins Cup.
Thoroughly deserved, Avery. A lot of support down here. Come on, let me hear you make some noise. And let's keep it going for this guy. His first ever podium in MotoAmerica, Cassidy Heiser. Cassidy, I was just talking to your team and they said you almost didn't even nearly make it out. There was some issues with putting the wheels back in, but your crew did a great job and you did an even better one. Your first ever MotoAmerica podium. Congratulations.
Thank you, man. That was hectic. It was actually our rain light wasn't working, and man, it was like the 2 minutes were up and we were going out. I had no practice laps. This is a bit of a redemption from New Jersey last year. You know, I started off really well out there and, you know, lost it in the first lap. And I really tried hard not to get to that point. This was great, man. As soon as I saw that it started raining, I got happy. I love riding in the rain, and you know, this is just kind of evidence of that. I got to thank everybody that helped get me here: my mom, my dad, my wife, and kids back home. Greg for building the bike, KYT Helmets for helping me out with that, JE Pistons. Man, this is great. I don't even know what to say at this point. You know, it's a dream come true.
No words needed. One of the biggest smiles. So happy for Cassidy. Let's move along then to the final rider on the podium, the Giocomoto Yamaha of Dominic Doyle. Dominic, you're no stranger to being on the podium. That was a sensible ride. Solid points, potentially make champions, and those 16 points could be really valuable at the end of the season.
Yeah, definitely. I just didn't want to ride over my head or try and go too fast to stay with those other guys, so I just kind of tried again, kind of do the same thing as Atlanta, just click my laps off and get the race done. Both of those guys came by me with some pretty good pace, and same with Alessandro, just kind of was getting away from me. So just played it safe and just stuck in there. I just can't thank my whole Giocomoto racing team for giving me a good bike, and all my other personal sponsors, CV Racing, Bardcon Racing. Yeah, everyone else helps me get here.
Excellent stuff. Well done to the top three. Jamie, it's going to be a pretty loud and excitable podium down here. You can probably hear the noise. A great way to finish. Back to you guys upstairs.
Yeah, I think that's great. You know, when you looked at the starting grid and Avery Dreyer was starting 10th and Cassidy Heiser starting 11th, Dominic Doyle was back in 5th, and all three of them able to find their way up to the podium. Let's take a quick look at the schedule for tomorrow's activities. We're going to start our coverage off at 9:55 Eastern time. That's 8:55 local for the warm-ups. Then Supersport will follow them for their warm-up. Royal Enfield Build Train Race. We'll see the track again. Stock 1000 will be the first race of the day. That will be at 10:20 local time, 11:20 Eastern. Roger, we have so much racing. We have 3 Superbike races this weekend. 2 of them are coming tomorrow.
Yeah, and all the classes having 2 races all weekend. So we got a Sunday field of racing, and hopefully tomorrow the weather cooperates a little better than it did today.
And that was a great display of what can happen, Roger, when you just put your head down and you just go out there and you do the job at hand.
Yeah, and what a great day of racing we had with some guys had some accidents, some guys got their very first win. You see Matthew Skoltz there winning that Supersport race, how excited he was. Cam Beaubier making a mistake in that first Superbike race. You know he's going to try to bounce back tomorrow. Cam Peterson able to win that race. Awesome to see. And after that, the rain came.
And we are going to wrap up coverage here from Barber Motorsports Park for day number 1. Royal Enfield will race twice tomorrow. Make sure you join us.
Full day race coverage on MotoAmerica Live Plus is brought to you by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.